Hey guys, Chad here, Midnight Story Club, and as we get further and further into this one, this is Thomas Kaine, The Most Deadly, Part 3, and our heroes find themselves really in the thick of it now. Which way is this going to turn? Who makes it out alive? Who doesn't? If you want to have a physical copy of these in your hands, you can get them in the links below down at Amazon. If you want an Audible version, the links will be down there as well. Be sure you like and subscribe. Help us grow this channel. Let's get into it.
Chapter 11. Smoke in the Mirror. I hadn't set foot in the 4th precinct since I stormed out for good, badge tossed on the table, blood still smeared on my collar, and the ink barely dry on my suspension. The air reeked of the same rancid blend, bitter coffee, sweat soaked in despair, and a darkness that no mop had ever managed to scrub away. Deputy Chief Hallbrook waited in the interrogation room, alone as if he'd anticipated my arrival from the shadows. His presence exuded a predator's stoic patience. Broad-shouldered and cut from stone, Hallbrook looked as though he'd been hewn from concrete and fed nothing but stale cigars and old grudges. His uniform was crisp, but his eyes were voids of seething intensity, locking onto mine with a familiar burning resolve. "Well, look who crawled back," he muttered. "Thomas Kaine, back in my lair." "Don't flatter yourself, Hallbrook. I was summoned," I snapped. "You got hauled in after a shooting at a civic fundraiser. The press is feasting on the carnage," he said with a wary edge. I sat there, silent and cold, flicking ash into the tray he'd laid out like bait. "Yeah, I caught wind someone tried to shoot me. You got a suspect yet? Or are you too busy polishing Greer's shoes?" His gaze hardened to iron. "I don't work for Greer," he growled slowly. "I work for the city." "Same city that buried a murder, a fire, and a body count behind zoning permits and handshake bribes?" I fired back. His jaw clenched like a coiled spring. "Keep kicking the hornet's nest and someone's gonna get stung. And it sure as hell won't be you." I leaned forward, voice thick with menace. "You mean Lana?" He didn't shift. "I mean, that woman's got a bullseye on her back. You're dragging her through hell. Your mess. Your damn rules. You really think she's gonna survive this? 'Cause I don't." The silence between us became a suffocating weight. "I didn't put a contract on my own head," I declared, "and I sure as hell didn't order a hit after a black tie gala." He slowly rose and stalked over to the one-way glass, his eyes staring into nothingness. "You always thought you was smarter than the rest of us." "I'm not smarter," I retorted fiercely. "I'm just not afraid to face the truth." He turned to me, his voice low and cutting. "You think I don't know what's rotting in my own department? That ledger you keep whispering about? Greer wants it. Childs does too. But here's some advice you won't listen to. When politicians want something buried, they don't care how deep they have to dig." "Is that what happened to Philip Drexler?" I challenged. His face stiffened, not with rage, but with a haunting remembrance. "I knew Philip," he murmured. "Not as a friend, not socially, but enough to know he didn't deserve what he got. Maybe he grew greedy. Maybe he got scared. But he never deserved to be erased." An unfamiliar doubt threaded itself through his tone, a feeling I hadn't heard in years. I erupted from my chair, sliding it back with a screech that echoed like a death knell. "If you want to help, Hallbrook, stop playing wall like some useless shield. Be the damn gate instead." He didn't stop me as I strode toward the door. Just as I opened it, his parting words stabbed at me like a bullet lodged too deep. "You ever think you're not the only one they're watching?" I said nothing. I just walked out, into a hallway where another mystery awaited. Outside the precinct, Lana paced with a nervous energy, her face drained of color. She clutched a manila envelope. "This was on your car," she said, voice trembling. "No return address." I opened it slowly. Inside lay a single Polaroid, taken from a distance, grainy, black and white, yet unmistakable. Philip Drexler, standing outside Bellevue Cemetery. Date stamped 4 days before he died. No content, no explanation, just him, alone, glancing over his shoulder as if haunted by unseen pursuers. Back in the car, Lana gripped the photo with shaking hands. Why would he even be there? I don't know, I replied, turning the envelope over in my hand with grim determination. But maybe someone buried more than just his body. She gasped, her voice barely above a whisper. You think he met them there? You think that, I interrupted, is exactly what I think. What do we do now? She asked, mind a whirl with this new information. As for me, I gotta make a quick stop. Then we find out why Philip was at that cemetery. Chapter 12. The Blood Ledger. Red Atwell's office was a cavern of shadows when I crept inside, lit only by the harsh glare of a desk lamp and the curling smoke from his half-burnt Lucky Strike. His sleeves were rolled up like battle scars, his collar flung open, and his eyes burned with the sleepless fury of a man haunted by war. Jesus, Kane, he growled, hurling his cigarette into a chipped mug with a clatter that echoed off the grimy walls. You're a goddamn phantom. Rumor has it you got shot. Others say you vanished. One guy even whispers that you're now working for Childs. I slammed the leather ledger onto his desk, the sound a heavy thud that reverberated in the murk. Dust exploded in the beam of the lamp like a swarm of angry fireflies. I'm not working for anybody, I snapped, but I've got something that'll rip Dunsmore wide open. He stared at the book, his eyes dark hollows that didn't blink as he absorbed its significance. Is that the one everyone's dying for? No, this is the one nobody even knows exists. I snapped it open to a random page, names bleeding across the paper, numbers like coded death sentences. Greer, Childs, Salts, payments to crooked judges, silent properties, kickbacks splattered like blood on a wall. Red leaned in, his face draining to a ghostly pallor. You want me to run this show? I want you to bury them all with it. He stroked his chin, his voice low and dangerous. You've got a bounty on your head, Kane. Childs is throwing 10 grand on anyone who pinpoints your location. Half the drunks in this city would sell you out for a hot meal. And Greer? He's turning bodies into tombstones. I secured backup copies, dead man switches. But time is running out. Red exhaled a heavy sigh, then nodded as if sealing a pact with the devil himself. Give me 12 hours. After that, the devil's gonna need new lawyers. The safe house was a relic buried deep in the decaying bones of Dunsmore, an abandoned carriage house I once used during a narcotics bust back when I still wore the badge. No phones, no electricity, just a creaking wood stove and windows staring out into endless, dismal fog and brush. Lana stood by the cold, indifferent fireplace, her eyes fixed on her father's final letter as if it were a lifeline. We sat in suffocating silence, the crushing weight of too many dark truths pressing down on us like wet concrete. He left clues, she whispered, her voice trembling with a mix of fear and defiance. Hidden in the phrasing. My father always wrote in code. She carefully unfolded the page, her finger drawing a trembling line along a scrawled margin. If they come for the ash, let them forget the fire. The real ledger lies where silence was planted, beneath the name no one speaks. I leaned in, feeling the gravity of the message. What does that mean? He's talking about a grave, she replied, her voice thick with conviction. An unmarked one. Somewhere in Bellevue. Philip buried his secrets, I murmured, a mix of awe and dread in my tone. Literally. Her eyes locked with mine. Then we dig. I veered the car off the highway, heart pounding as I hurtled downwind, Bellevue's gray hills etched in silhouette against the bleeding light of dawn. We arrived at the cemetery just as the gates creaked open. A solitary caretaker shuffled near the entrance, his tattered coat hanging off his hunched frame like a dying ember. Excuse me, I called out, flashing a photo with a defiant glare. You seen this man lately? The caretaker squinted through the murk, then gave a bone-chilling nod. Yeah. Him and another guy. They met regularly, like clockwork. A stab of recognition shot through me. The other guy. I pressed. What did he look like? Broad-shouldered, the caretaker rasped, his voice cracked like dry earth. Wore a pinstripe suit. Smoked like one of them locomotives. Lana and I exchanged a fierce, loaded glance. Greer. Where did they meet? I demanded, voice thick with urgency. The caretaker gestured vaguely with his weathered rake. South End, near the old mausoleum. We turned onto a crooked path flanked by gnarled yew trees and leaning headstones, the air heavy and tainted with the scent of damp earth and inevitable reckoning. There it loomed, the solitary mausoleum crouched like a forgotten beast, its door ajar, a black ribbon of wire slithering out and slicing through the dawn like a serrated blade. It was unmistakable, the kind of electric wire used to bypass alarms in the dead of night. I shoved the door wide open, steeling myself against the bone-chilling cold and the dread gnawing at my insides. Bellevue Cemetery was older than the corruption that festered in the city. Tombstones leaned drunkenly, and fog coiled around the crypts like a sinister warning. We trudged forward, following the cryptic trail Philip had etched in his letter. A cluster of moss-choked, crumbling graves appeared at the back. One grave was unnervingly flat. No name, just a blank slab swallowed by the earth. This is it, Lana declared, pointing with trembling determination. I know it is. I knelt, tearing away dead leaves and brittle soil. Beneath the loose slab lay a narrow compartment, a weathered smuggler's box rather than a coffin. Inside lay a leather-bound book, older and weightier than any we'd seen before. I flipped it open. Not just any ledger. The ledger. Packed with hundreds of pages, deeds, contracts, manifestos of monstrosity, each page a testament to corruption incarnate, the mother of all ledgers. We stared in raw disbelief, our minds wrestling with the enormity of treachery. He knew this day would come. I growled, my voice a wire-strung confession, tried to mislead them, to burn the trail to cinders. But the old fox was always one step ahead. Lana snatched a page, her fingers nimble as they unraveled the web of names. Greer, Saltz, Childs, and a dozen more ensnared in deceit. They craved the land, she gasped, eyes wide with revelation. But he already obliterated their claim. Eradicated any chance for silence, I added grimly. He led them to believe it was buried. Meanwhile, Lana fell silent, a gloved hand pressed over her mouth as the weight of truth crashed down. We've got them, she whispered, her voice laced with a fierce promise. Before I could respond, a low, menacing rumble shattered the stillness. We whirled around to see a cloud of dust on the horizon heralding our doom. A black sedan screeched to a halt at the gates. Move, I thundered. We bolted, ripping as many pages as our frantic hands could clutch, stuffing them into our coats, leaving the rest scattered like an explosive time bomb waiting to detonate. Looking for ghosts, Kane? A familiar voice bellowed from the gates. I froze, my gun snapping to life in a flash of adrenaline. From the swirling mist emerged Deputy Mayor Greer, cloaked in a black coat and clad in gloves, his presence unnervingly calm. And behind him, another man, silent yet all too watchful. You have a thing for graveyards, don't you? Greer sneered, his gaze locking onto the ledger. You always did love digging up secrets. I leveled my gun, every muscle tensed. You should have stayed behind your podium. He smiled, a cold, dangerous twist of his lips. I could say the same. Chapter 13. A City of Ash. The first bullet screamed past Lana's shoulder, missing by a mere inch. The second exploded into the tombstone behind us, stone fragments erupting like deadly shrapnel. Move, I bellowed, seizing her hand as if our very lives depended on it. We tore away from the mausoleum, the stolen ledger pages flapping wildly from Lana's coat like wounded, desperate wings. Behind us, Greer's voice snarled through the oppressive fog, raw, guttural, and seething. I want it intact. Another shot boomed out. It ricocheted violently off a cold wrought iron fence post just ahead. We veered left, hurtling past crumbling gravestones, through ankle-deep layers of dead leaves and under twisted yew branches that clawed at our coats as if hungry. The cemetery had become a malevolent force against us, fog swirling at our feet, dense and suffocating, every headstone hiding the threat of an ambush. My lungs burned like hot coals, my legs pounded with the fury of a chase, but I couldn't let up. I knew Bellevue like I knew death, intimately and by feel, We vaulted a low fence and slammed into the back field, a barren stretch of wild brush and treacherous sinking soil. Our car loomed at the edge, black and ominous. If they found it, that would have marked our end. They hadn't. Lana dove into the passenger seat as I flung the door open, slid into the driver's seat, and jammed the keys into the ignition. The engine spluttered, a brief cough, then erupted into a deafening roar. The tires screamed as I slammed the pedal, headlights slashing through the swirling fog like razor-edged blades. In the distance, a figure materialized from the mist, weapon at the ready. Another shot thundered through the air, smashing into the trunk with a grinding metallic thunk. I pressed on, not slowing down, not drawing a single breath until Bellevue Cemetery lay behind us, swallowed entirely by the impenetrable fog. Silence filled the cab until we reached the back road south of Dunsmore. "Was that Greer?" Lana asked, clutching the salvaged ledger pages like fragile lifelines. "It was him," I replied, glancing into the rearview mirror, and he wasn't alone. "I counted 2 more. More will join the hunt." The safe house loomed on the edge of the world, a dilapidated carriage barn draped in ivy and shadow, its power long dead, its phone silent. Inside were only a rusting stove, groaning floorboards, and a wall that kept secrets no one could bear to remember. We slipped in and bolted the door behind us. It was unsettlingly quiet. Too quiet. I lit the stove, coaxing flames that chased the darkness back by mere inches. Lana peeled off her sodden coat and knelt on the cold floor, her shining eyes focused as she laid out the precious pages of the blood ledger. Together, we worked in tense silence, dusting off mud and smoothing creases with trembling precision. This ledger hadn't merely survived, it had outlasted kings. Names, dates, cash traded for silence, deaths documented in mere 2-line notations. Greer, Childs, Saltz, and countless others whose names whispered of corruption and betrayal. Later, bathed in firelight and exhaustion, Lana settled beside me on a worn rug, a single blanket shared between us. Her hair clung damply to her cheeks, streaked with sweat and rain. In a voice as delicate as shattered glass, she murmured, "He sacrificed everything to protect this. My father always warned, if this ever surfaced, it'd raise the entire city." "Your father was right," I rasped, pouring a measured drizzle of whiskey into tin mugs. She accepted hers with a solemn nod. We sat in heavy silence, listening to the mournful wind and watching the flames twist like living things. Then she confessed, "You scare me, Kane." "Good," I replied, a grim smile tugging at my lips. "That means you're smart." Her smile was both tender and tragic. "It's not just that. I'm terrified of where this leads, but I know it ends with you." Our hands brushed, her fingers lingering without recoil. But before the gravity of our silence could deepen any further, a noise outside shattered the moment. A crunch of gravel, a brittle twig snapping. We both froze. I drew my revolver and edged to the window, parting the curtains just enough to scan the darkness. Nothing but enveloping fog, looming trees, and shadows poised in silent vigil. I hesitated a heartbeat longer before lowering the gun. "They're not finished yet," I murmured. "No," she whispered, clutching the blanket tighter, "and neither are we." At the dusty ancient desk, I lifted the old black handset, a single copper wire spanning decades yet still carrying voices. I dialed, and Red Atwell answered on the second ring. "Kane?" he rasped, his voice thick with sleep. "I've got the pages. They tried to kill us for it." "What do you need?" "A hideout. A sanctuary off the map." He paused, then replied, "Old paint shop off Halberd. It used to be my brother's. It's abandoned. No soul will be there." "1 hour," I said, hanging up as the fire in the hearth crackled with secrets. Outside, the wind carried the ominous scent of burning ash. The decrepit print shop off Halberd looked as if it had died not once, but twice. Its front windows were barricaded, and the sign above was barely legible with missing letters. Rain slicked the cracked pavement as we stepped from the Packard, my satchel tight under my coat, clutching the ledger pages. I scanned the lifeless block. Silence was oppressive, too eerie. Lana trailed closely, her hand gripping her purse and something small hidden inside, her father's letter, now folded like an impenetrable shield. I knocked once. Red swung the door open almost instantly. He looked worse than on the phone. clammy, pale, eyes darting as if desperate to escape his own reflection. He ushered us inside in a frenzy and locked the door behind us. The air inside reeked of mildew and ancient ink. Rusted machinery lurked in the shadows like skeletal beasts. A solitary, sputtering bulb illuminated a rickety desk. "I wasn't sure you show," Red forced a grin. "This place is dead. No one comes here anymore." "I've got what you need," I stated tersely, stepping forward. He motioned towards a metal thermos and 3 tin cups. "I made coffee. Thought maybe you'd—" I froze. 3 cups. But there were only supposed to be 2 of us. Noticing my icy stare, Red's hand fumbled at his sleeve, revealing for a fleeting moment a frayed red thread. The identical thread I'd seen dangling from the cuff of the man tailing us at the cemetery. In that suspended heartbeat, everything halted. "Red," I said quietly, the tension coiling in my face. "Who else knows we're here?" His mouth opened, then closed without a word. Suddenly, the door exploded inward. 3 men, clad in black coats, stormed in, armed and merciless. No words, only a tumult of raised guns and a roar of chaos. "Down!" I bellowed, snatching Lana and diving behind an ancient press as bullets tore through the paper-strewn counter. Red's shout was swallowed by the cacophony of gunfire and shattering glass. A towering pile of yellowed newspaper burst into flames as a stray spark caught it. I fired twice, catching one of the assailants in the leg. Lana flung open a side door and we sprinted, dodging a hail of bullets, smoke coiling around our ankles as the inferno raged behind us. We burst into a rain-drenched alley, pursued by smoke that twisted and clawed like a living entity. Behind us, the print shop burned with a fury, a conflagration devouring wood, paper, and the tainted echoes of a past we had hoped to leave behind. We dared not look back. We ran relentlessly until the skyline dissolved into a churning mass of smoke and ruin. The Packard waited silently 3 blocks away, and we drove in a strained hush, the city passing by like a dying, tormented beast. Lana clutched the satchel tightly. "The ledger," she whispered, voice trembling. "Is it—" "I got part of it," I replied grimly. "For the rest," I swallowed hard, "the fire took it, and with it maybe our only proof." We eventually pulled into a shuttered car wash off Industrial, the rain hammering the roof like a drum of impending doom. "I trusted him," Lana said bitterly. "Red, I thought—" "So did I muttered, guilt and rage mingling. "That's on me." The radio crackled to life, and a bulletin shattered the silence. "Unconfirmed reports indicate a body has been recovered in the South Canal District. Local journalist Red Atwell, deceased. Cause of death unknown. Foul play suspected." Lana turned to me, eyes wide with disbelief. "Greer?" "Possibly, or someone cleaning up loose ends." Yet something gnawed at my insides, a disquiet I couldn't shake. "Red wouldn't have been bold enough to double-cross Greer," I said slowly, each word heavy. "That was Chiles's move, and someone scrubbed it away, swiftly." Then, from deep within her coat, Lana produced a final envelope, the one her father had sealed separately and marked with her name. Inside lay a single meticulously hand-drawn map. Its ink had faded, yet its details were undeniably precise. Not a deed, not property, but a room. A clandestine chamber hidden beneath City Hall. "He said that if anything ever happened, this was where I'd find what he couldn't put into words." A cold shiver crept up my spine. "They don't just want to incinerate the evidence," I whispered hoarsely. "They want to torch the entire damn city." I spread the map again, the twisting lines carving a path through ancient foundations and shadowed sub-basements. Time to go underground. Chapter 14. The Hollow Below. The knock shattered the stillness just after midnight. 3 sharp, relentless raps at the safe house door, each one measured, deliberate, as if permission were irrelevant. Lana stiffened beside the crackling fire, her grip on the blanket clutched tight around her like a lifeline. The map's pages trembled in her lap, as if they too detected the sudden spike in tension. I rose deliberately, gripping the revolver with a pulse that pounded like a war drum in my throat. "Stay back," I hissed, more command than plea. I advanced to the door, my shoulder pressed against its frame like a barricade. "Who is it?" I demanded. A familiar voice, gravely and exhausted, rumbled back. It's Holbrook. I cracked the door open just enough to level my revolver at his chest. There, standing in the lashing rain with his hat pulled low and trench coat clinging with droplets, was the chief. His face a mask of grim determination and haunted hollowness. How the hell did you find us? I barked. He remained unmoved. Because I know you, Kane. We used to march to the same beat. You trained me to think your way. You're good, just not reckless. My grip tightened on the gun. I didn't lower it. You planning to turn us in? I snarled. If I were, you'd already be cuffed or buried. He shot back, a hint of dark humor in his tone. Mind if I come in before the thunder sends me into a heart attack? I paused, the air thick with distrust, then reluctantly stepped aside. Holbrook entered like a man ferrying the decay of a crumbling metropolis on his weary shoulders, his eyes sweeping the room with the same practiced vigilance, scanning for threats, lies, any hidden exit. He offered a single nod to Lana, but she returned nothing except silence. You've got 5 minutes, I ordered, voice edged with cold steel. Make them count. He drifted toward the fire, stripping off his drenched coat as water pooled around his heavy boots. They aren't covering up evidence. They're cleaning up people. Saltz is missing. 2 zoning clerks vanished. And Judge Haler, the one who pushed through the corridor deal, resigned last night, found dead in his garage this morning. His car was still running. No note. I sank into a chair across from him, revolver resting like a loaded thread on my knee. Greer? A slow nod was his only answer. Emergency session at City Hall tonight. Closed session. Just the core allies. They're circling wagons, Kane, and setting fire to everything outside their ring. You're issuing a warning? I growled. But why? Holbrook met my eyes with a grim resolve. Because you're not wrong, and because your funeral's starting to look a whole lot like mine. Lana reached over, unfolding Philip's map. We found this, she announced, spreading the yellowed page across the floor. My father hid something under City Hall. Holbrook leaned in, his calloused fingers tracing the map's intricate lines until recognition sparked in his eyes. I remember this, he murmured. Years ago, before the renovation, there were whispers of a hidden room beneath the old courthouse foundation, sealed off after a fire in the 1920s. No one ever went back in. Until now, I replied, tension thick in my voice. Greer's trying to rewrite history, and the ink's still fresh on those walls. Holbrook rose, determination hard as steel. Then we better get underground before he seals the last chapter. An hour later, we parked 2 blocks from City Hall in an alley so dark it seemed to have never known morning. Rain hissed against the rooftops while the sky above Dunsmore bruised into the earliest hints of dawn. Holbrook led us around a rickety rear entrance gate, a stolen keycard from a utility worker who'd pried too deep. He nodded at the guard rotation, silently counting the gaps. The guard, ever observant, had not lost his edge. We slipped into the basement through an ancient service hatch. The air shifted immediately, thick, oppressive, smelling of wet stone, mildew, and decaying secrets. Lana, gripping the map tight, led us past abandoned filing cabinets and the hulking presence of defunct breaker boxes until we reached a flight of stone steps spiraling down into utter darkness. Holbrook paused, his voice uncertain. You sure about this? No, I replied, and stepped forward into the unknown. The passage descended beyond expectations. The concrete walls gave way to damp brick, then to packed dirt. Suddenly, we confronted a heavy steel door, chains and rust, cradling its seal like a sentinel. Holbrook pulled bolt cutters from his satchel, and with 2 ferocious snaps, the lock yielded. We stepped into the darkness beyond. The hidden room. The space reeked of ash and decaying paper. The air was suffocating, thick with dust and memories of time long past. This wasn't a vast chamber, no larger than a courtroom antechamber, but its walls were draped with iron file drawers and scorched ledgers, like a relic of hidden truths. Every footstep echoed as if daring to disturb the silence. Then Lana found it, a false panel behind a neglected cabinet. With trembling hands and a screwdriver, she pried it open. Inside, wrapped in oilcloth, lay Philip's final cash, blueprints, original zoning contracts, memos between Greer, Childs, and the rezoning board, and the most damning, a sealed letter addressed to my daughter and the man who stayed in the fight. Lana's hand shook as she held the letter. Nearby, a metal rear canister, its label a faded specter reading Confession, Greer, lay ominously. I turned to Holbrook. "You've still got friends in internal affairs?" "Not many," he confessed, voice low and bitter, "but enough to bury a king." Together, we packed the damning evidence as the city above throbbed with a menacing pulse. Just as we prepared to leave, the sound of approaching voices shattered our fragile cocoon, footsteps echoing from above. The stairwell above flooded with harsh beams from flashlights, slicing through the darkness like predatory sharks circling in a shark tank. I shot a look at Holbrook, tension dripping from every word. "You didn't tell anyone we were coming here, did you?" He swore with a shake of his head. "I swear." Then, as if sealing our fate, the vault door slammed shut behind us, plunging us into an even deeper, inescapable darkness. And above us, the wolves were already closing in. Chapter 15. The Confession Tape. The vault door crashed down behind us with a brutal clang, sealing us off from the feeble light like a coffin lid snapping shut over a corpse. The secret chamber beneath City Hall fell into a suffocating silence until the dying echo of the door's slam faded into the cold, unyielding stone. Lana whipped around, her eyes wide with a mix of terror and fierce determination. Holbrook muttered a curse as he pounded the stubborn wheel, locked tight with no handle on our side. "We're trapped," he growled, a low, dangerous rumble in his chest. "Not for long," I spat, my flashlight slicing through the darkness like a scalpel. "Let's dig up something worth dying for, even if it costs us our lives." The ancient chamber reeked of scorched paper and time's decay, every breath thick with the tang of burnt secrets and long-forgotten horrors. Shelves sagged beneath the weight of abandoned files, ledgers, and city plans, documents too perilous to destroy, yet far too explosive to leave in the open. This wasn't merely a records room. It was a tomb, sealing away the scandal of truth. Lana's trembling fingers fumbled through a stack of ledgers, her eyes darting over water-damaged signatures and ink fading like dying memories. Then I spotted it. A battered reel-to-reel recorder sitting on a corroded metal cart, its dented casing and dust-clogged dials as worn as the sins it concealed. Beside it lay an envelope, its label scrawled in tight, bureaucratic hand. Conv. Corridor Project. I tore it open and pulled out a single reel, its magnetic tape clinging desperately to the spindle like a heartbeat on the edge of silence. "You still got power down here?" I demanded. Holbrook struck the junction box on the far wall. "Generator's dead, but I rigged the backup," he snarled, producing a portable battery pack from his satchel, a relic from his old cop days, and connecting it to the recorder with clipped wires and a fervent prayer. The machine roared to life. Static. Then a voice emerged, smooth, disturbingly casual, and laced with menace. Deputy Mayor Simon Greer. He wasn't reading from prepared notes. This wasn't a confession. It was a cold, calculated conversation. His voice measured and rehearsed as he spilled every damning syllable, unaware that every word was being seared into the tape. Drexler's a liability, a sentimental fool still clinging to the notion that land even matters. You know what's buried beneath Belmore? Leverage. Old zoning exemptions, grandfathered plats. If he digs any deeper, it all comes undone. I don't crave scandal. I want a clean, fast heart attack. No blood, no mess. Just a family left mourning silently without a single headline. His sister, she weeps into a bottomless trust fund. His daughter, they haven't spoken in years. We keep it that way. Lana's face turned to stone, shock mingling with grim understanding. Once the brownstone changes hands, we fast-track the corridor. And when the city is engulfed in flames in 5 years, they'll call it progress. Greer paused. Then chillingly, we make sure he dies at home. Quiet. No blood, no questions. A second voice then slithered in, low and dangerous as silk soaked in gasoline. I'll take care of it. Childs. The tape clicked, the reel spinning in a haunting silence. Lana sank back, her expression washed out and ghostly. "They killed him," she murmured, reverence and horror mingling in her tone. "They killed him for a map and a deed." "No," I replied, fixated on the inexorable turning of the reel. "They killed him because he refused to play their game." Holbrook disconnected the recorder, tension crackling in the air. "This tape is enough to bury them both. Greer ordered the hit. Childs carried it out. All we need now is daylight and a microphone." I scanned the room, then met Lana's resolute gaze. "We need to get out, now." She pointed to a shadowed corner where a faint rectangular outline disrupted the smooth wall. "There," she whispered. "That's the crawl space from the map." We stormed across the room. I forced open the old inspection hatch, revealing a narrow, claustrophobic tunnel just wide enough to crawl through, a suffocating passage of earth and stone stretching into absolute darkness. Holbrook plunged in first, followed by Lana, clutching the map like a lifeline, and I staggered behind, heart hammering with dread. 15 agonizing minutes of crawling past, dirt caked our teeth, stone grinding uncomfortably against our backs. Then we burst out into the abandoned basement of the Dunsmore City Museum. We stood there, shaking off layers of ash and raw fear. Above us, the city pulsed with uneasy life. But for how long before the flames consumed everything? "We take this tape public," I declared, voice raw and determined. "We find the right judge, the relentless journalist, or hell, even a dive bar with a working radio. We let the people hear the truth." Holbrook's nod was heavy with grim resolve. "You've got until tomorrow night. That gala he mentioned, it's no charity event. It's the cover for an arson. They're planning to torch City Hall to the ground." Lana reached into her coat and produced one final page from her father's letter, a torn drawing, a faded schematic of a hidden room beneath the decrepit courthouse. "He said I'd find what he couldn't say," she whispered, voice trembling with loss and resolve. I examined the lines, the ink nearly erased, but the message unmistakable. "They don't just want to bury the past," I said, my voice catching in my throat. "They're hell-bent on burning the entire damn city." I looked up at the inspection hatch that had delivered us into this nightmare. Time to go under again.